The church was silent except for the faint echo of the organ, its last note trembling in the air as if even the music hesitated. I stood at the altar, lace sleeves tight around my arms, Daniel's warm hand just inches from mine. For a heartbeat, everything felt perfect, the flowers, the hushed anticipation, the future waiting for me. Then a chair scraped against the floor. Margaret, Daniel's mother, rose from the front row, her pearl necklace catching the light. Her face, pale but burning with resolve, turned toward the crowd. Her voice cut through the stillness. "She'll never be part of this family." The words hung in the air like broken glass. Guests gasped. Some turned away. My chest tightened as every pair of eyes settled on me, searching, questioning. Daniel's hand twitched in mine, and I felt the hesitation travel through his fingers. I wanted to speak, to defend myself, but the priest shifted awkwardly, cleared his throat, and pressed forward with the ceremony as if nothing had happened. The vows blurred, the ring slipped onto my finger, and the kiss felt mechanical, staged. The applause that followed was scattered, uncertain. I smiled for the cameras, but inside, a seed of dread rooted itself. Margaret had chosen the most public, irreversible moment to strike. It wasn't just cruelty, it was strategy. At the reception, whispers filled the room louder than the music. I caught phrases as I walked by tables. What did she mean? Was there something we don't know? My cheeks burned, not from champagne but from shame. Margaret watched me from across the hall, a faint smirk touching her lips whenever our eyes met. Later that night, as Daniel and I retreated to the bridal suite, I finally asked him. Why did she say that? Why now? Daniel hesitated, his tie half undone, gaze fixed on the floor. She thinks you're marrying me for the wrong reasons. That you only care about the family name. The money. My stomach dropped. And do you believe her? His silence was louder than any answer. He didn't deny it outright. That night, while Daniel slept beside me, I lay awake replaying Margaret's voice. The way she hadn't shouted in anger but spoken with a cold, deliberate calm. She believed she had power over me, over us. And Daniel's hesitation told me this wasn't the first time she tried to poison him against me. The next morning, I overheard two of Daniel's cousins in the hallway, their voices low but sharp. Margaret said she has proof. She wouldn't humiliate her son otherwise. Proof. The word sliced through me. Proof of what? I had no secrets, no past scandals, nothing to hide. Yet Margaret spoke as if she held a weapon no one could see. That was when I realized, this wasn't about humiliation alone. It was about destruction. She wanted me gone, and she wanted to make sure the entire family turned against me before I even had a chance to belong. As I closed the door and leaned against it, heart racing, one question consumed me. What could Margaret possibly know, or pretend to know, that gave her the confidence to declare I'd never be part of the family, even on my wedding day? The morning after the wedding, I forced myself to sit across from Daniel at the small hotel table, untouched breakfast cooling between us. His eyes were bloodshot, his shoulders heavy. Daniel, I said quietly, what proof could she possibly have? What is she talking about? He rubbed his temples, avoiding my gaze. She told me, she had documents. Something about you having debts. That you were desperate. That's why you married me. My breath caught. Debts? I had none. That's a lie, I said firmly, heat rising in my throat. You know I've worked every day of my life to stay afloat. I've never asked anyone for money, not even you. He looked torn, caught between love and doubt. I want to believe you, he whispered. But his hesitation lingered, sharp as a knife. By afternoon, Margaret's whispers had spread beyond family. A phone call from my maid of honor confirmed it. Guests were asking if I was some kind of fraud. The humiliation wasn't confined to one night. It was growing, reaching further, staining my name. I confronted Margaret directly the next day at her estate. She welcomed me with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "You shouldn't have married him," she said, pouring herself tea as if we were talking about the weather. "You're not cut out for this family. You'll only drag him down." I clenched my fists. "You lied. You told people I have debts." "Why?" She stirred her tea slowly. "Because, dear, Daniel's inheritance depends on who he marries. And if he stays with you, he'll lose it. Everything his father left will slip away. You wouldn't want to ruin his future, would you?" Her words hit like a storm. This wasn't about me, it was about money, control, legacy. She was twisting love into leverage, daring me to step aside. "Do you really think you can scare me into leaving?" I asked, voice trembling but steady enough to carry. Margaret's lips curved into a thin smile. "I don't need to scare you. I just need to show him you're not worth the cost." That night, Daniel came home late. His face was pale, his tie undone. He avoided my eyes as he muttered, "Mother says we should reconsider things. Just, for the sake of the family business." The word stabbed deeper than any accusation. As I stood in the darkened room, the weight of it pressed against my chest. Margaret wasn't just spreading rumors, she was laying traps, pushing Daniel to choose between me and the life he thought was guaranteed. But a single question echoed louder than my fear. What exactly was in that inheritance that made her so desperate to destroy me at any cost? 2 days later, I decided I couldn't rely on Daniel's half-answers anymore. If Margaret was using the inheritance as a weapon, I needed to know exactly what it was. Quietly, I reached out to the family lawyer, Mr. Harris, and asked for a private meeting. His office smelled of old paper and ink, the heavy curtains shutting out daylight. He looked at me with cautious eyes. "I shouldn't be speaking with you without Daniel present," he said. "Please," I whispered, leaning forward. "I just need to know the truth. Margaret is tearing us apart. If you don't tell me, she'll win." For a long moment, he studied me. Then he unlocked a drawer and pulled out a leather-bound folder. "Your mother-in-law has been selective with what she shares. The estate doesn't belong to her. It was left entirely to Daniel." My breath caught. "Then why?" He raised a hand. "Not just Daniel. The will states that upon his marriage, the estate expands to include his spouse. Which means you, Emma. Margaret knows this. She's trying to invalidate the marriage by making it seem fraudulent." The air left my lungs. So that was her game. If she could make the marriage look like a scheme, the entire inheritance could be contested. I turned the pages, my fingers trembling. Among the legal wording, a handwritten letter slipped out, creased, yellowed, tucked between documents. It was from Daniel's late father. "If you're reading this, it means I'm gone. Daniel, I trust you, but I also know your mother. She will never accept anyone who threatens her control. Protect the woman you love. Trust her more than whispers. She will be your strength when I cannot be." My throat tightened as I read the words. His father had foreseen this. He knew Margaret's nature. I looked up at Mr. Harris, voice barely steady. "Does Daniel know about this letter?" He shook his head. I left it where it was, hoping the right time would come. Perhaps this is it. That night, when I returned home, Daniel was waiting. His eyes were shadowed, his hands clenched. Mother says if we stay together, she'll contest the will. She has cousins ready to testify against you. I slipped the letter into my bag, keeping it hidden. Daniel wasn't ready to see it yet, not while Margaret's shadow still covered him. Instead, I asked carefully, "And what do you think, Daniel? Do you believe her, or do you believe me?" His silence told me he hadn't chosen yet. But I had. The question that burned now wasn't whether Margaret would fight me. It was, when the truth came out, would Daniel stand with me, or against me? The confrontation came faster than I expected. Margaret had arranged a family discussion at her estate. When Daniel told me, his voice was flat, rehearsed, as if he already knew what was expected of him. The room was full when we arrived, Margaret at the head of the table, several relatives scattered around, their faces stern, curious, some almost gleeful at the drama. I sat beside Daniel, my hands tight in my lap. Margaret's voice carried sharp authority. "We all know why we're here. Daniel must choose. If he remains with Emma, he risks losing the estate, the business, the family's future." She turned her gaze on me, cold and certain. "You can make this easier, Emma. Leave quietly." I took a breath, the letter from Daniel's father burning in my bag. My voice was steady. "You've lied about me. You've told people I have debts. That I'm not worthy. But the truth is, you're the one afraid of losing control." Murmurs stirred across the table. Margaret's smirk faltered. "You have no proof." I pulled the folder from my bag and slid it across the table. "The will. It names Daniel, and his spouse. Which means me. And this," I unfolded the fragile letter, my hands trembling only slightly, "is from your late husband. He warned Daniel about your manipulations. He knew this moment would come." Gasps rippled through the room. Daniel leaned forward, reading the words, his face paling as the reality sank in. His father had trusted me. Not his mother. Margaret's voice cracked. "That letter, it's a forgery. It has to be." But Daniel stood, his chair scraping loudly against the floor. "Enough, mother." His voice shook, not with doubt but with fury. "I've let you control me my whole life. But not anymore. Emma is my wife. And she is family." The silence that followed was heavy, final. Margaret's face crumbled, her authority dissolving before everyone's eyes. For the first time in weeks, I felt air fill my lungs freely. I wasn't just defending myself anymore. I was reclaiming my place. After the meeting ended and relatives dispersed in uneasy silence, Daniel turned to me. "I'm sorry," he whispered. "I should have trusted you sooner." I looked at him, the weight of the letter still in my hand. "Trust has to be earned, Daniel. Remember that." Later, alone, I read the last lines of the letter again, words I hadn't dared to share in front of them all. "If you doubt her, you will lose her. And when you lose her, you lose the best part of yourself." I folded it gently, a strange calm settling over me. Margaret had tried to erase me. Instead, her schemes revealed exactly why I belonged. The twist wasn't just that Daniel chose me. It was that his father had chosen me long before we ever stood at that altar. And Margaret would have to live knowing she'd lost a battle she could never win.